Morning, Commissioners. I'd like to call the January 5th, 2016 board meeting to order. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Commissioners, this is the first meeting of 2016, and one of the housekeeping things we need to do is we need to elect a chairperson. So, Commissioners, is there a nomination for the chair for 2016?
Mr. Auditor, we kind of have, as people know, a little rotation on the board where we move around, and this would normally be my year to be chair. But I think in recognition of Commissioner Sawatsky, this is going to be his final year on the board, and this just started his 26th year today. I would like to forego my term as board chair and nominate Commissioner Sawatsky for chair this year.
I'll second that.
Okay. Are there any other nominations?
I choose to move and close nominations for chair.
I'll second that.
Cease nominations and cast unanimous ballot for Chair Sawatsky. Hearing no other motions, it's approved. Commissioner Sawatsky, I turn the meeting over to you.
And can we have it in writing too to make sure that this is his last year?
You've got my word, that's all you need. We haven't actually approved these yet, but as soon as we approve them, yeah, okay. Well, Charlie, I appreciate that gesture, it's very kind, thank you.
No, I think it would.
At this time, we'll call for nominations for vice chair. Is there nominations for vice chair?
I'll make a motion to have Charlie Burrell as vice chair.
Any further nominations for vice chair? Any further nominations? Okay, if not, is there a motion and a second to elect Charlie Burrell as vice chair?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second that.
Motion by Commissioner Delighten, second by Commissioner Hewsom. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimous. Thank you. The minutes of December 29th, 2015.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
Motion by Commissioner Delighten.
That.
Was that a second by Commissioner Hewsom?
Yes.
Second by Commissioner Hewsom. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimous. We need a motion to transfer back any unused funds in the county attorney's contingency fund, the sheriff's contingency fund, and the incidental fund to the general revenue fund.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Delighten, second by Burrell. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimous. Motion to recall all unused clerk hire and unused budgets for 2015.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Delighten, second by Potter. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimous. The setting of regular county board meetings, of course, we've done 9 a.m. on Tuesdays for many, many years. I assume that's what the membership's going to
I
want
will
to do.
move to continue the 9 a.m. on Tuesday morning.
I'll second that.
Okay, so that's every Tuesday in 2016. I don't know, has anybody checked to see if like we have any big issues with a holiday or something like that right now in December?
I do know the next,
Christmas wouldn't be
we have
on
5 Tuesdays in March,
In
so we'll have
March.
to address it.
Yeah, we'll address it then, but we don't have any like Christmas Day on a Tuesday or nothing like that, I don't think that we.
No.
No, we
on
don't next
Sunday
year,
this year.
but there will be the conference.
Okay, so we'll set them for all and then cancel them as needed, okay. So 9 a.m. on Tuesdays, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimous. We did get the motion maker and second recorded, right, Susan?
Yes.
On that, okay. Then down to committee membership. Susan, you had one that was on here twice. What was that?
That was the Regional Radio Board was listed twice, both as the Central Minnesota Emergency Services Board under C, but then it is also listed farther down under R as Regional Radio Board.
And Mr. Chair, the correct terminology would be the Emergency Services Board for that.
Okay.
So the other one probably should just be deleted, I guess. Probably.
Okay. Is everybody okay with membership for the beginning of this year here?
I'll I'll make a motion to approve the appointments of committees for 2016 as same as last year,
But deleting
deleting the one.
the radio thing. Yeah. Okay, and as indicated here, then the first member named will act as the chair, and the second, or the first one named will act as the chair. And then I think each time at the meeting, you guys list that person first too, so we know right there.
Correct.
Okay, great. Second by Mark, was there?
I'll second
First by Mark, motion by Mark, second by Charlie. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimous. Then we have the Regional Advisory Board second typically, don't we?
Correct.
I'll make a motion to approve the regional advisory boards as the same as it was last year.
Okay, motion by Delyden,
Second.
second by Burrell. Okay, there's the motion way at the bottom of that second page is where it shows up on here. Any further discussion?
Nobody has any questions or problems with that?
No.
No, and I don't think any of the ones with term limits, we have any problems with terms on any of the ones that do happen to have terms either, so.
Right. I have just one, and if I'm fine with that.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimous. Review and approval of the agenda. There's one thing I would like to add under items for consideration. Or else, actually, you know what, if it's okay with everybody, I'll just put it under consent agenda. It's an issue of parking, it would go under C, it'd be C2, parking near government center relative to the apartment building, Lakeview Apartments. There's just been an issue that's come up with some concern, and the apartment people are wondering where to park, and Lee's trying to protect our parking spaces, and it's just kind of created a bit of a problem for some folks. So if the building committee could look at that, I'd appreciate that, and if we could put that under C2 Lakeview apartment parking issue. And then, Lee, if you could advise somebody from the city, Mert or somebody, to come to that meeting, because I think they're a player in this, and let someone from the apartment building know about it as well. So if we could add that to the consent agenda. Anything else to add to the agenda anywhere today?
Mr. Chair, I'll move the approval of the agenda with the one addition that you had noted.
Okay.
Second that.
Motion by Commissioner Potter, second by Commissioner Delight. Any further?
No, it's Houston.
Second by Commissioner Hewsom. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimous. That brings us to the consent agenda. We do have one item that Planning and Zoning Administrator Sean Riley would like F1 removed from there to be taken separately. With the exception of that, does anybody have anything they'd like to remove for further discussion?
Mr. Chair, I'll approve the consent agenda with the item F being removed for discussion.
Okay.
And then, Sean, you're just going to be talking about that as well?
Yeah, we'll take that immediately.
I'll second.
So motion by Commissioner Potter on the consent agenda with the exception of item F, second by Commissioner Delyden. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimous. Sean, you want to go ahead and take the podium?
Good morning. Good morning, Mr. Chair, County Board. As you can see on the handout I presented to you, there are 3 members, actually 2 members with their term expired on the Planning Commission. Jan Thompson, 1st District, Commissioner Hewsom, Dan Mall, member at large, and I'm assuming the Planning Commission County Board representative got addressed in that appointment. Board of Adjustment, Bob Sherman, 5th District, Commissioner Burrell, Dan Mall, 2nd District, Commissioner Sawatsky. All those terms expire December 31st, 2015. I've talked to all the appointments, and they are agreeable to continue with their appointments. They would all expire December 31st, 2018.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to approve Planning Commission for Jane Thompson for District 1, Dan Mole, member at large, And for the Board of Adjustment, Bob Sherman, 5th District, and Dan Mull, 2nd District.
I'll second that.
And Mr. Chair, Jan said it was okay to serve with me again? so-
Well, maybe she doesn't know that you got appointed.
Jan and I have a lot of fun.
Okay, so we've got a motion by
Delight.
Commissioner Delight, and he did not do Charlie, but of course, we just did Charlie already.
Yep.
I assume is why you passed that. We
Yep.
got a second by Commissioner Newsom. Any discussion? I'm more than happy to have my person serve again, so I appreciate that motion.
Dan does a real good job on that. so.
And Charlie, you're okay with the motion, and two, you've got Bob? Yep. Okay.
Bob, yep, very
So, any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Pose same sign. Motion carries unanimous.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Sean.
Thank you.
Okay, 9:05, Bob Hebel, Auditor Treasurer. Good morning, Bob, again.
Morning again, Board. The first item, I actually have two agenda items. I like that. I'm on at 9:05 and then again at 9:07.
Yes.
So, Board, the first item on the agenda is to appoint the official newspaper. And Board, this year, we did receive 4 bids. So I'm going to open them up at this time.
Why did you think there were 6 when there was only 4?
Must have been thinking.
It's new math.
Oh, okay. Just kind of curious, that's all.
Board, this is a newspaper bid. There is no indication on the envelope as to who it was received from.
How about on the bid itself?
On the bid itself, Commissioners, I don't see a newspaper.
Well, that's an interesting bid.
Where does the postmark, what city?
Minneapolis, so I'm
Oh, that
assuming it's the
doesn't
paper
help.
that got.
Must be the Star Tribune.
So Board, it's $1.30.
Okay. Well, I'm not sure in all the time I've been here, we've ever had that happen before, where someone submitted a bid and didn't tell us who they were.
Board, this is from the Herald Journal. The Herald Journal did bid the 10.5 pica, 10 lines per inch is 10, lowercase is 84, and the bid is 37 cents per inch. Commissioners, this is the Delano Herald Journal.
And they have the same ownership, correct?
Correct. Again, 10.5, 10 lines per inch, 84 with a cost of $3.69 per inch. Commissioners, this is Sun Media. Please accept the following bid from the Monticello Times. There's 2 newspaper bids in here. Theirs is 6 lines in length per pica, lines per inch is 9, 72 is the length of lowercase alphabet, and $3.69. That is for the Monticello Times. Inside the same envelope, they did also bid the Crow River News, and the bid was 6 lines length per pica, 9 lines per legal, 72 cost per column inch is $3.69. So Board, if you want, I can tabulate these for you. The Herald Journal will be the lowest bid based on the ones I opened at 37 cents per column inch.
Mr. Chair, I would move that we continue with the Herald Journal at that low price of 37 cents per inch.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Hewsome, second by Commissioner Burrell. Any further discussion? Brian, we usually go back and calculate them because there's some differences in space and whatnot, but
Okay.
since it's so obvious here, I think that it's going to be the low bid. Is it just okay that we do this?
You can make a motion pending.
Subject to.
Pending
All right.
review?
Yep.
Okay,
I will amend my motion to include that.
I'm good with that.
okay. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Pose same sign. Motion carries unanimous. And once again, the Herald Journal gave us very favorable numbers. Bob, let's see here, temporary liquor licenses.
Yes, Commissioners, we have 2 temporary liquor licenses. The first one is a bait. This is an event that's happened before. Everybody has signed off on the application, so I'm asking you to approve a temporary liquor license for the bait, an event held February 6th at Rockford Township Hall.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Delight, second by Potter. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Pose same sign. Motion carries unanimous.
Commissioners, the second one is a temporary liquor license for Maple Lake. This is the ice fishing derby on February 6, 2016. Again, we have the proper signatures and filing fees. I'm asking you to approve that one as well.
I will move that.
Motion by Commissioner Delight, second by Commissioner Hewsome. Any further discussion?
I just hope they have enough ice to be able to have their
Yeah.
fishing tournament.
Last year it was not good ice.
Well, yeah, that's a good point, because last year, the one in Monticello, they had to move it from one lake to a different one because the lake they were planning did not have enough ice.
Maple Lake had that problem too.
Good point. What was the date, February 6th? Yeah. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Pose same sign. Motion carries unanimous. Thanks, Bob. Virgil Hawkins, good morning.
Morning.
Morning, Chairman Swatsky and Board of Commissioners.
Morning.
Good morning.
This morning, I have one item for your consideration, and this is more of a housekeeping item. This is for our Highway 37 federal aid project that it's planned to be constructed in 2017. We need to acquire right-of-way this year, and this approves preparation of a highway plat that the county surveyor's office would prepare for us to acquire right-of-way. And there's a resolution attached.
I'll make a motion to approve the resolution for the preparation of highway plat by county surveyor for CASA 37.
I'll second it.
Motion by Commissioner Delight, second by Commissioner Potter. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Roll call.
Roll call.
Roll call vote, I'm sorry. Charlie? Aye.
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 Resolution carries unanimous.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Virgil. Brian, you sitting in for Tom?
I am.
Morning, Brian.
Morning, Mr. Chair, members of the board. The resolution you have before you is very similar to one that you passed a couple of months ago regarding court services. It basically authorizes Tom Kelly to sign off on what's called a master subscriber agreement with the Office of State Court Administration. It allows us, or will allow us, to remotely access court documents. And it's a new system that's going into place. The state requests this resolution just authorizing Tom Kelly's signature on that agreement.
Mr. Chair, I'll move the resolution.
I'll second it.
Motion by Commissioner Burrell, second by Commissioner Delight. Any further discussion? Roll call vote. Commissioner Burrell?
Aye.
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 Resolution carries unanimous.
Mr. Chair, my next item is requesting renewal of a contract for dangerous dog services with Crossroads Animal Shelter. Crossroads actually brought this to our attention. We overlooked it, but they indicated a willingness to continue providing services at the same rate as they did during 2015, that being $3,500 annually. That's paid, I believe, on a quarterly basis to them. I checked with the sheriff's office. They are very satisfied with the the working relationship that they have with Crossroads. And Crossroads also asked that it be extended for 2 years at that price. So that's the proposal that you have before you.
I'll make a motion to approve contract with Crossroads Animal Shelters for 2 years, covering 2016 and 2017 for the same compensation as 2015.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Delighten, second by Commissioner Potter. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimous.
And, Mr. Chair, the last item is kind of a repeat of an action item that you had in December, I believe December 15th, perhaps. The board approved of hiring appraiser Kevin Casserly for, I believe, 6 or 7 properties that are scheduled for tax court trials during 2016. This one was overlooked. It's a commercial property along County Road 37, just a little bit west of Albertville. And the deadlines are actually a little bit quicker on this one, so we'd like to get Kevin approved, and the board has previously approved these out of the professional services line item.
I'll make a motion to approve retaining appraiser Kevin Cashley for this additional property. Proposal PIN number 118162001010.
I'll second that.
Motion by Commissioner Delighten, second by Commissioner Potter. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimous. You know, we're starting to get a few minutes ahead here, and I don't know, there may be some people coming in for the 9:30 item, so why don't we head on down to, let's see here, advisory committee updates, board updates. I guess we don't have any minutes to look at today, do we? Looks like so. Charlie, anything to advise us on here today?
Not that I can think of right now. I don't think.
We've got about 5 minutes to kill here, so, Mark, you got anything for us?
Sorry, I don't.
Okay. I do want to point out, and we didn't do this last week, and I think it just kind of maybe, I'm not sure, we might have just found out just after the board meeting, or maybe perhaps just before, I can't recall, but former Wright County Attorney Wyman Nelson passed away. I think it was maybe a week ago, yesterday or something, about a little over a week ago, and I had an opportunity to work with County Attorney Nelson for 8 years, from 1991 to 98, when he was county attorney here in Wright County, and I certainly appreciated his outstanding efforts. He did a really nice job in the office of kind of changing some things around and kind of reorganizing things, and you know, maybe making some necessary improvements to the office and whatnot. And I think at the time he was on, he started out over there for probably just a few months and then moved up to the new facility up there, I think, when he was here. But my personal relationship working with him as commissioner and county attorney was outstanding, and I think I can speak for the entire county board at that time that we really appreciated his efforts, and we're pass on his condolences to his family.
Mr. Chair, I'm glad you mentioned that. I did attend the funeral on Saturday, as did Tom Kelly. Wyman Nelson actually served 3 different times as Wright County Attorney. The first was, I want to say, in the late 1960s when Glenn Swenson was appointed to the bench. Glenn Swenson had been county attorney, and so he filled in for a period of less than a year. Then was elected, I believe, in 1972 and served until approximately 1978. Spent quite a few years in private. During that time, he was part-time county attorney and had his private law practice in Cokato. Then in 1990, he was elected as a full-time county attorney, and that's the period during which Tom and I both served under Wyman. And so he served 2 full terms up until the end of 1998, at which time Tom Kelly was elected and started. So it was a lot of nice things said about Wyman. I agree that the office took a turn for the better under his 1990 to 98 term. It's a changed office since then.
Yeah. And Brian, I did not make the funeral because I had a conflict that day, but I went to the wake on the evening before on Friday night, and unfortunately, I didn't know many faces in the room, so I was kind of, I didn't know Wyman had 4 children, I believe, 3 sons and a daughter, and I didn't know any of them, so, and kind of the way it was set up, you couldn't really tell who the family necessarily was, and I didn't necessarily want to run around asking too many questions, but, so it was kind of I didn't get a chance to meet all the family members there, but I did get a chance to come in. I wished I would have had a chance to go to the funeral, but an interesting thing, he was practicing in Minneapolis, and, of course, Wyman grew up in Cokato, and he was practicing in Minneapolis, a young attorney, and the attorney from Cokato, the only one they had, became a judge here at the county, and they convinced Wyman to come back and start a practice in Cokato, so that's how he kind of got back to practicing in Cokato. But we've got most of our 5 minutes taken up, but there's still a couple minutes left for Commissioner Potter and Commissioner Houston here.
I don't have anything, Mr. Chair, this week.
Mr. Chair, I will just draw people's attention to the memory bench that we've got out in front of our courthouse now. It's a very nice one that Court Services initiated in memory of victims of suicide and their families, and so it's a very nice spot out there. And
You can see it from where you are?
I can.
Oh,
So.
maybe we should switch seats.
And that was put up all entirely by donations as well.
Correct,
Yeah.
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 Commissioner Burrell, if she says she can read the writing on the bench, then I'm going to question.
Yes, I can't see on that side of the bench, but I have read it when I went out to look at it when it was put out, but
No, it's the perfect spot for.
it is,
for that.
and it's very, very nicely, the color of gray really blends in nicely, so.
Nice station.
Do we have to say all rise when judges walk into the room? Okay.
Well,
Mr. Chair,
I think
did
you're right
have-
on time, but
Just remind everybody to Thursday, 7:30, Albion Township Officers Association meetings.
Yep, at the Albion Town Hall.
yep. Okay, I think we've got,
One quick question.
Go ahead.
River Riders, is that all done now, or?
I don't know if we're going to meet again. They weren't sure if we were going to meet again. They thought maybe it might just be a matter of sending the final check. MnDOT is in the process of doing their audit, as I
Oh,
understand
okay,
it.
so there was one more audit left. Okay.
But like I say, last time we left, we kind of left with the understanding that hopefully we won't have to meet again as a board.
But we're on call.
If we do, we will, but we're hoping it's just going to be a matter of perhaps a month or so now that the check's being cut and sent out to us.
Okay, so right now, we're just waiting on MnDOT to.
We're waiting on MnDOT, and there was one other thing. There was some sort of a rebate or return of sorts from the federal government, or something, like a gas tax return or something
Yeah,
like
I remember
that.
you talking about that.
And I think Shelley was hoping that if we thought that was going to come soon enough, it'd be easier just to wait until we got that, and otherwise, we'd have to send everything out and then kind of just cut another final check in. So if he thought, again, if that came soon enough, that we'd just make that part of it and then be totally done, so. At this time, then, we'll move to our 9:30 item, which is the Lee Kelly, County Coordinator, approved draft remodeling feasibility study for Wright County Courts.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Included in your packet is a draft of the RFP that was developed for the proposed remodeling there. Just a quick bit of history. This was developed in conjunction with court admin and the bench, and of course, the 2 members of the building committee. We worked through a couple different meetings and worked through a couple different drafts to generate the document that is in front of you. I would say it's pretty standard format as far as an RFP, a little bit of history outlining the scope of the project and some of the things that we'd be asking them to do. Wanted to make sure that this came back in front of the board to give its final blessing prior to us publishing it. As far as the timeline, we would like to release it as soon as possible. If it would be signed off on today, we would like to get it out tomorrow if possible. Looking to get responses by the 17th of February is the proposed timeline. And then about a week to evaluate that before it would come back to the board for a final decision on moving forward on that. So I'd also copied you on a list of potential vendors that we'd gathered. I talked very briefly at the AMC conference with several of them, plus others that had heard that we were going to be undertaking this and had submitted their information to me. So I guess I would welcome any comments, or if there are not any, I would like a motion to proceed forward to get this out to the world, so.
Commissioner Burrell?
Mr. Chair, I thought we were going to do something a little different than what, and maybe I'm reading this wrong, but when we always, if we have an architect or whoever does this study, and one option is build a new facility, and the other one is to see what we can do to work and, to stay in this area for 3 years, 5 years, whatever term, it's always, the best option is always build the new building. I thought we weren't going to put that on. We were going to have a totally separate thing just to say, to look at the feasibility of staying here. Because that's going to be a board economic decision for us, whether, of course, we could go build a building, just send the bill to the taxpayers. I mean, that's pretty simple. I mean, but there's ramifications that way. I mean, there's
ramification both ways.
Exactly, but I'm wondering if we would get a more objective, if we had an architect and just, whoever's gonna put the bid on this and just said, this is what we want you to look at and get us a bottom dollar and some really good ideas here, I think we're going to be better served by doing it that way rather than have the option of the new building, because they're always gonna make more money on a new building.
But is that on here?
Right,
Well,
Mr.
it is, but unfortunately, and Charlie, it jumped out at me too, because the county seeks to determine if it is more cost-effective to option one. So right off the bat, option one is basically,
We're done.
begin building a new courthouse within the next year or two, which basically is immediately. And to me, if you're an architect and you've got any sense at all, let's see, $4, $5, $6 million remodel project, $40 million building. I think I like the $40 million building, so I mean, it would make a lot more sense to maybe try to drive the ship in that direction.
And then you may not get the the full development.
Well, I think as we're looking at, when we're doing the interviews with the architects and stuff like that, I think we will be very forthright on what our goal is trying to stay in here. But there are some requirements to stay here.
Oh, we know that,
And
a lot.
yeah, but we need to look at the whole picture, and what's going to cost to do this, and what kind of time frame, we're lasting, because there's a cost to staying here, and then redoing it back to making more offices again. So we want to look at the whole picture.
But I didn't mean to
But,
cut
but,
you off.
and I agree. And if we just have an architect that wants to push us to building right away without looking at realistically, then I don't think that's an architect we're gonna hire.
Yeah. And
Well,
Mr. Chair,
Chris.
Commissioner Burrow, I guess I read it differently. I didn't read that was, that option one is the ultimate one. I read it that these are the three options, and, that there's a list of what to consider under each of the options. So I kind of looked at it as more of an open mind proposal, but
Mr.
maybe
Chair, that was.
maybe that was the way I interpreted it, but to me it was, this isn't, just because it's listed as option one, that doesn't mean it's the ultimate option. So that was my take on it.
Mr. Chair, I will corroborate what Commissioner Houston was saying. That was our objective, is to get the options out there, not necessarily in any order. We need to know how deep the water is before we dive in. We need to know what it
Right.
takes to be there. And you don't want to spend $10 million to be there if that's not feasible. I don't think that's what's going to happen. I think the idea was, we need to see what we need to do to make these compliant. We had the bench issues with the couple, the
Yep.
courtrooms there. And it wasn't any particular, this is the first, this is the best. They were just three different options out there. What do we go with it? And that was the objective. And that's how I remember what's.
But I remember specifically saying I didn't even want the contractor, the architect that we have doing the proposal here to even be involved in building a new building, because I said it creates
They're
a
not
potential
necessarily
conflict.
building the building.
Yeah.
And I know one thing too, we talked about not necessarily having them look at an analysis of the cost out there, because we pretty much already have someone that told us how many square feet we need, and we can go out and find the industry standard for square footage construction and do the math. And do we need to pay somebody to tell us, you know, how much it's gonna cost to build a facility out there?
And that's why we talked about, no, we're not going to even look at that.
So, and I see the judge is up here to enlighten us, so maybe we should.
Judge McPherson, go ahead.
Thank you.
All right.
Mr. Chair, members of the board. I just wanted to clarify that from the bench perspective, when we had met together as the board and the bench in the joint meeting to review kind of what our options were, the board had a very strong appetite for looking at what are the options. And so what we were asked to do, or what we understood that we were asked to do as a result of that joint meeting is, okay, what are you going to need in terms of remodeling if we build the building relatively soon, if we do it in the midterm, and if we do it in the long term?
Right.
So the options that are set forth in the RFP incorporate what the bench needs are. And we do have a very immediate need, regardless of what option you choose. Even if you were to vote to build a new building today, we have some very significant needs related to E-Court and the bench reconfigurations that need to happen. You folks need to know how much that costs in order to make good decisions about those needs. And so what the discussion was is incorporating, not hiring two separate architects to analyze that, but to look at that and figure out what that cost is, so that as you're making decisions about what time frame you want to utilize this building for courts, that you have that information, because this is a very crucial need. December 1st was the date we went live with our electronic file and serve, and we are finding already that as we go paperless with different kinds of case types, we are really struggling, folks. So we really need those bench modifications. And so that's what's incorporated under option 1, because we wanted to make it clear that even if you were to start building a building right away, that's going to take time. And we need those bench modifications, preferably about 6 months ago.
So, okay, thank you, Judge, for that
Sure.
clarification. So then this, the architect here then, Mike, isn't designing a new building out there, anything like that. They are just saying, if we started now, what would we have to do here? If we started 3 to 4 years, if we started 8 to 10 years, what would do? So they're not,
No.
because we know it's
know
gonna
what
be
it's gonna cost.
$40+ million out there. I mean, like.
We know what it's going to cost out
Okay,
there.
all right, I got it then. I'm okay with that. So what you're saying is, even if we did it right now, we probably are still gonna have to invest 25, 30,000 here. So.
I don't know the dollar amount. Did not hear any dollar amounts out of my mouth.
I was being optimistic.
Privately, she was telling us 10,000.
I guess
I went high, huh?
I'd like to talk a bit about the list of some of the things, and I know this came primarily from the bench and probably from couple of the county offices as well, and let me begin by saying I have a lot of respect for our bench. I think we have an outstanding bench here in Wright County, but I have to disagree with the necessity of a few of these items on there, and I think by having some items on here, you make the ability to stay here for any reasonable amount of time basically not at all feasible. And I'll mention a few here in just a second, but I think there's a few things that have to be pared down, and I was hopeful that would happen. In fact, I compared the original wish list that was created by the judges to the one after the committee met and discussed, and as near as I can tell, it's identical. I don't, and if one item got removed, somebody can point it out to me, but if 2 got removed, I'll be shocked, and because the only thing that got changed is items used to be listed by number, and to make it a little more challenging to cross-reference, somebody changed the numbers to letters, so we just kind of had to count the number of letters to verify and go across. But some things that, in my opinion, are not feasible, and not only not feasible, but not necessary. And I'll give you an example, a secured parking garage, and I presume that's for the judges. And I know some facilities have secured parking garages, and we can even argue whether ours is secure or not. I don't believe it is, but we can make a discussion. But my question would be, and I don't you don't have to answer this, but you can if you want. I mean, it may be more of a rhetorical question, but how many court facilities in this state, there's 87 counties, how many do the judges have secured parking facilities? In other words, they're not out maybe parking outside or something like that. My guess is it's far less than half, and it's probably, well, my guess is it's far less than half, and it's certainly not all of them. So to kind of suggest that if we don't have that within 5.5 years, we can't operate that facility, to me, that makes this a disingenuous proposal.
I think it's in the 8 to 10 year time.
No, it says that, well,
On the option 3, delay building for 8 to 10 years.
oh, you know what, I was looking at the old one, or if it was occupancy after the 21st, so you're right, that's 8 to 10, so from that standpoint, it went 8 years now, but even at that, isn't it fair to say, Judge McPherson, that the majority of counties in this state do not have secure parking facilities for judges? And if I'm wrong, I'd be more than happy to be corrected.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, I don't have that information for you, but I want to identify where that recommendation came from. We did have a security audit done of this courthouse, and there were specific recommendations made, and there were some specific recommendations with regard to the garage that is utilized by the judges. There was some concerns about lighting and about the entryway and about who has access to the garage and the number of entrances. There were some specific recommendations made that weren't involving building a new parking garage, just making some modifications to the existing garage. When the bench reviewed those security recommendations as part of the effort that we made to identify what needs to be done, it was the bench's feeling that that was a long-term issue as opposed to a short-term issue. The security consultant believed that that should be done relatively soon. Yeah. The bench disagreed in light of the fiscal considerations that the board faces concerning the courthouse here. So we put it on the farthest out list for that reason, but it is a recommendation that was made to us by the security audit.
Okay.
How many judges, I'm sorry, how many judges have parking down there?
6. They don't always utilize it.
Okay, so we do have 6 parking spaces down there.
That we utilize, yes.
Okay, so we do have, okay, so then there's 6 judges, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so each of you do have a parking space assigned down there.
There are the 5 that are specifically identified for court administration, and there is a 6th one that was used by a different department, I don't remember which, but that we utilize that's not being used by that department anymore.
Okay, so we already have spaces for everybody in
Correct.
the garage.
Yeah,
So,
the
okay,
security modifications that were recommended were related to where the gate is and how the gate operates and making changes there. I'm sorry I don't have the specific details, but
we're talking about downstairs.
correct.
Well, there was a lot of things, and then
Right.
lighting was another one, and there
Correct.
was a few things, but.
Yeah.
Okay,
that-
so maybe this,
But
each should be
my
changed.
point being, I believe, and again, and Judge McPherson is not aware that I'm incorrect on this, that there's many court facilities in the state that do not have any better secured parking that we have right now, and that will, in all likelihood, be still in use 10 years from now. So I agree that when we build a new facility, that ought to be looked at, and that ought to be done correctly and accurately and appropriately, but I think,
I'm gonna bet that if we asked the judges if we could scratch that one, you probably wouldn't have the biggest beef with that either, though. I mean, that's,
Well, it needs to get changed
Right.
because it's not secured parking garage. It's just upgrading security.
Correct, and
Well-
Mr. Chair, that's what was going to be my point, that there's options that you can do modifications to our existing garage, I believe, to make it more secure, but without getting into too many details.
well, and-
You know, that's just something to look at.
And I guess I asked the question relative to 87 other counties that exist out there. If 40 or 50 or 60 other counties have a parking facility that is no more secure than what we have, do we suggest here that we can only go 8 more years because it's not secure enough? I hear you when you tell me that that we're the only ones in the state that have this small of a room, or when there's only us and 3, I understand that, but when overwhelmingly, I think if you went to other counties, if the judges were told, hey, you can park indoors, you got this, you got that, you'd probably have 50 or 60 other counties out there, maybe more, where the judges would say, hey, we really wish we had that secure facility that they have in Wright County. So I just think, again, I'm pulling a few things off here, and I'm not, but I just think there's a few things on this list. Space rental for Department of Corrections, I'm not sure even what that means, and if we're required to have it, and if all the other 87 counties have it. My guess is the other 87 counties don't. At least many of them don't, but more office space for the county attorney. At some point, he's going to need it, but can he go 5 or 6 years without getting more office space? I think he can, and this suggests that he can only go 3 or 4. You know, can he go 7 or 8? Probably, because we're not, I mean, if we look at the report done that the gentleman did for us here, that we all seen the thing, it appears as though he feels very strongly that the caseloads are going to be, you know, relatively flat for the next period of time, which suggests to me that in the county attorney's office, then they're not going to have a tremendous amount of growth. Now, it doesn't mean they may not need a space or two, but I just think there's some things here that by placing them in there,
It's like a poison pill.
well, it's like a poison pill. Now, I'm not going to argue with your necessity for the, you know, how small 3 of the courtrooms are, for example. But there's other things, you know, or the fact, a hearing room for a magistrate. I'm not even familiar enough with what a magistrate does differently than what you folks do to put too much input, but maybe this could be the hearing room for them. I don't know. I don't know how many, I don't think they're here 5 days a week.
They're not. They're
Yeah.
here 1 day a week, Mr.
Yeah,
Chair.
and maybe this would be the perfect home for them then, and maybe it could, you know what I mean? And I don't know where they go now, but not that doesn't, I mean, that's, like I say, those sorts of, you know, that's fine, and I understand it, but there are a few things on here, and I don't know if people want to hear my whole list here today or not, but I just think there's some things on here. Yeah, court services inside a secured portion of the courthouse. And that needs to happen, that needs to happen within 3 to 4 years. It's not going to happen. Court services is not going to be in a secured portion of the courthouse in 3 to 4 years unless we accept the fact that what they have right now is secure by having locked door, bulletproof vests, and the ability to use wands on people and that sort of thing.
And
I apologize for interrupting again, but in the 87 other counties in the state, I have to believe that probably most of those 87 counties, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, I'd be happy to be corrected if I'm wrong, but I'll bet you more than half of those 87 counties, court services, you do not have to go through metal detectors to go to their court services. Do you think I'm probably right on that, or do you think I'm probably wrong?
My profession is not one that likes to speculate, but I will tell you that Mr. McMillan would probably be able to provide you with information regarding that issue. I do know that we have had a number of security incidents in court services very recently, and so what we're trying to do is protect our staff. And so we would like there to be some screening that occurs for individuals, offenders who are coming in to meet with court services staff, some of whom are dangerous, some of whom are mentally ill, some of whom come with weapons. And that's the part that we're most concerned about addressing, because we do believe that that is necessary to protect our staff.
Yeah, and precautions need to be taken, I don't dispute that, but again, when I ask the question, if there's 87 counties out there and if 50 of them, people don't have to go through any sort of a metal detector to get to the court services office, why is it that in our county, it's something that has to happen in the next 3 to 4 years? Otherwise, we can't stay in this facility. So I think there are some things in here that, as Charlie uses the word poison pills, that I think it makes it impractical, and I think the concept of staying here for ideally up to close to 10 years or at least 5 years becomes impractical when those sorts of things are in there and it's not feasible. And I understand that if we move to a new facility, that would only make sense to do that, and you can do it cost effectively then because you're designing it. But unless we take court services and move them down to somewhere down over there where it is going through metal detectors, you can't practically do it. I mean, we've had that discussion, and the board has kind of decided that that was acceptable. And it shouldn't, in my opinion, it shouldn't derail this sort of thing where someone comes in here and says, geez, well, you can put metal detectors back at the front door, and we all know that really wasn't effective. I mean, and if we thought it was, we were kidding ourselves. I truly believe that you folks are much more secure today as a courts than you were prior to moving them. I really believe that, and we're doing it for less money. But So I mean, I can pick some things out of here, and I'm not saying that it's all bad or that even a majority of it's not right, but I think there's a number of things in here that create concern, and I'm voicing them today. Charlie?
Mr. Chair, and there's one here that stands out at me. I'm like, if I can picture how there would be a feasible way or how an architect could come up with something, I'm wondering, instead of saying, and I don't know how, maybe we're not saying these are mandatory things, if they're just say, if we can look at it and we can address this for a reasonable amount, I don't have a problem leaving it on. For example, the one where we have the hallway where we bring the prisoners in, it's the same hallway that the judges use and stuff. Now, the prisoners are shackled, they're handcuffed, and they're escorted with bailiffs and stuff. But I can't really picture how else we could do it. And maybe, I mean, that's fine for an architect to look at that, but that, I don't know how, can you guys conceivably
Yeah.
think? You can, okay.
Yeah, and the way it would be is by covering up the outside exercise area and putting in 2 new courts over there. Because that would be.
But then how would you
separate.
get the prisoners to the courtrooms up here without going through the hallway?
Well, there'd be only one courtroom being utilized in that respect. For that
Out
type
of
a
all
deal.
where they are now, there'd only be one courtroom?
There'd be 3. One existing one, which is closest to where the prisoners come in now, which you could keep it separate. But, you know,
Yeah, there's-
I'm not an architect.
Yeah.
And I have some ideas that, you know,
Okay.
like looking at it, and I'm hoping that the architect we hire will look at this stuff and say, I understand, but yes, feasibly, this cannot be done here. And
Okay.
that's what I'm hoping that
They will do, so that they can
they'll
say.
say,
we-
yes, you know,
looked
we
at this,
understand it.
instead of giving us a number for 3 and 4, maybe if they put a number with each one of these things to where we say, let's say the one for using the hallway, and we can make this work for 3 or 4 years here for X dollars, but if we have to do something with the hallway, it's gonna double the price. Well, then, maybe we can,
Then you can look at those options.
okay, but so would they be kind of,
Well, that's what I'm hoping, that we would get an architect that's gonna look at it and go, yes, this is feasible, this is not feasible.
I mean, I'm
Is there
all
a way
for,
we can compromise and do this?
I'm
you know?
all for having it looked at, because I understand the concern. But, I mean, we've done it for 30 years, 20 years.
Let me ask this then.
Mr. Chairman, if I might,
Yes,
before
please
we
go
leave
ahead.
this topic.
Yep.
I do think it's important to note that this is to ask an architect to look at these particular
And I'm
issues.
okay for that.
And give you information, because you have to make decisions as a board, and we have to make decisions as a bench as to what we can tolerate and what we can. But these are the most pressing issues that have either been identified by the bench, by that security audit, or by the National Center for State Courts that came out. And so these are not the sum total of what, you know, would be ideal for us as a court, to be very functional court. We anticipate that that won't occur until the board decides to build a new building. But what we're trying to get at is, how do we address the safety concerns that exist today, the accessibility concerns that exist today, and meeting those technology needs that we have, both we as a bench, but also the customers that come before us. And the county attorney could certainly speak to that more, but we have some very specific needs. So we're asking that we receive some information about what it would cost to address these issues that exist today. This doesn't mean this is what you're going to do. You may choose to reject all of it.
Well, and Judge, that's, you keep making good points all the time, I like that, but, and if they are pieced out that way, and so we have we can put a cost with each one of these, then that's good, because then that's when we all have to sit down and say, and that's one where you might say, you know what, as long as we got this on the road for 7 years from now, we can live, like Judge Tenney said, you know, there's some things that we can, they're not ideal, but we can live with it. We've done it in the past. It's not ideal. But like Mark said, though, if the cost isn't that bad and the architect came up with a great idea, let's do it. You know, there's no reason not to, you know, so as long as we have a cost with each one of these, then that will provide us with,
Well, either that, or they just say, there's no way you can feasibly do it here.
And that might be the.
And I'm hoping again,
You
we'll
may-
have an architect that can work with.
I have a question, just when it says replace courtrooms 3, 4, and 6, are you just kind of saying that 3, 4, and 6 aren't adequate? That may mean remodeling and adding 2 of them together, or what, just so I kind of understand what the expectation is.
Apparently Judge Kenny would like to speak on that issue.
I mean, there's space there, so I mean, I presume we're going to utilize that space,
Yes,
and it's in your
yes.
area, so
3 and 4 have a wall between them, so maybe 3 and 4.
4 together could be a
we call one
courtroom.
courtroom, as an example, and there's a magistrate office behind that maybe we take and make that part of a bigger courtroom that can be used as a family courtroom or a child protection courtroom, or a combination of those things. 6, as you know, used to be a vending machine room. So we already are trying to fit things into this building, and we are, finding ways to make it work.
How big is is 6 become a potential magistrate?
Magistrates use 6 a lot.
Okay, so that could, okay, I got you.
Yeah, they do. And they
Okay.
they use your boardroom a lot.
Okay.
The acoustics aren't great for them in here, but.
Sure.
So
Okay.
no, we're not talking about just eliminating that space or not using it effectively. We're just talking about modifying it to make the courtrooms more accessible, more secure, work with technology, and larger, so they're functional.
Okay.
Yeah, and as far as ADA accessibility, that, to me, that's critical. We gotta have courtrooms where somebody in a wheelchair has accessibility. Because I seen somebody up here the other day that it was in a wheelchair, and it was
Sure.
difficult for them to get around.
Lots
And they told me.
of citizens come in, and it's very hard for someone in a wheelchair or other device to get into a lot of our courtrooms. And when they are in, they can't really. They're just in the walkway between the benches, and they're not.
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Potter?
on all these options and all these different scenarios and sitting in here, the idea was to have an architect know that we've been looking at many different scenarios, and we're looking for a cost-effective way to upgrade, fix what we got here. We know we're not moving the next couple of years, it's just not gonna happen, it's just going too quickly. But we do have the ability, if an architect decides that they're gonna try to we're gonna move and that's it, we'd have the ability to reject that and go somewhere else. And I don't believe any of the architects out there are gonna play that gambit at all, because they know it's gonna cost them future business. Quite a few counties around the state are in remodeling or just got finished with remodeling in E-court, ADA compliance, and all kinds of other scenarios sitting out there. So we're not the only ones sitting in this situation here, and all the architects know that, and they're gonna know we're gonna come after them with the same questions that other counties have come at them too. And it's not necessarily building a new courts, it's how do we remodel, how do we make our existing one function, and at what cost?
Okay. Thank you for that. And I'm certainly not trying to criticize the work here, because I think a lot of good work has been done, but I'm going to try to leave my mark on this before we're done with this meeting here today. And I have a couple, our suggestions, our requests, and we'll see if others can latch on. And the first thing I would like to do here, and I think it's simple, I'm sure everyone would agree with this, at least the first component of it, but I'd like to make option 2, option 1, option 3, or actually I'd like to make option 3, option 1, because when you option things, it kind of suggests that it's your favorite. So I'd like option 3 to be option 1. Because I think it really was, when we talked about this a few months back, it really was our goal to see if we couldn't get close to that 10-year period, and then have just a great opportunity to have bonds fall off and really be able to build a beautiful facility without creating an enormous hiccup on taxpayers' pocketbooks. So I think that really was our goal, and I think everybody here ideally would like to do that. Now, there may be a disagreement on our ability to do that or not, but an architect's coming in, and that's part of what they're going to do. So I'd like to make option 3 option 1, option 2 can stay option 2, and option 1 would become option 3.
I don't have a problem with that. To me, it's.
Right, they're just
No,
not-
and I didn't think anybody would.
No.
I'm dealing with option. Go ahead, Judge.
I think they were listed in that option not as a wish list or a preference. They were listed, option 1 are a very, very small amount of things to do. Option 2 is those small amount of things plus these things. Option 3 is option 1 and option 2 plus these
These ones, so
Right.
that was how we.
Yep.
That's why they were listed in that order.
Yeah.
I don't think it's.
No, and that's fine, but I just think sometimes when you say option 1, you kind of think it's your preferable one.
Yeah, no, I have
You
no
know,
problem.
That wasn't our idea.
And I'd like then the new option 3 to say begin building a new courthouse within the next 2 years, because you can't do it within, even if we decided to, it ain't gonna happen within a year, so let's be more practical and say 2.
Okay.
Because there's, I mean, so, and then I would like there to be, in quotations after that, something to the effect that indicates that the county is hoping this feasibility study will allow them not to have to choose this out. Or just something that indicates that we'd like the new option 1 and 2 to be feasible. We're hoping that we can create something that's feasible.
Well, that's the whole goal behind all of it.
You know, so I don't know,
Well, I think that it's kind of listed in there. Shortly, where is it here? I thought I read that somewhere in here.
Project.
To provide space planning and architect design services.
I think it's under, right, you're saying here, project requirements and statement of work. It's kind of,
I thought I remember reading
because
about
it
it.
does talk about the economic downturn in 2008 and subsequent years as it's saying.
I guess just maybe within parentheses, the county hopes to avoid beginning construction within 2 years. Now, but yet, it's there, it tells the number. I mean, if the facts speak in that, hey, look, it costs $18 million to stay here, and we can go out there for $40 million. I mean, it doesn't matter that we hope to do that or not. I mean, the numbers are gonna be such that, hey, we're not gonna spend 18 million here, and we're, you know what I mean? But just something indicating that, so they give it a legitimate effort. The other thing I would like is some sort of statement, well, I think that, the other couple things, I think court services inside a secured facility and additional, was there something about additional office space for court services or not? No, there
Yeah,
wasn't.
yeah, there is.
Oh, and, okay, so I would like, and board members here, you can, I won't feel, well, I might feel bad if you disagree with me, but I will accept it.
I disagree with you.
I would like to take N,
Like to take
Which one?
from option 2, N, S, and T, and move them down to the option 3 category.
And T.
N, S, and T, and move them down to 3. I do not,
The old 3. The old option.
There's still,
the old option 3, which is
Which we
which is
haven't
the
moved
new
yet.
option 1, you're right, Charlie, the old option 3, which is the new option 1. I think that's court services being in a secured facility inside again.
Well, then that would be the same thing.
Not practical.
With option O, that, I
Yeah,
mean,
S is additional office space for court services. And T is additional office space. I mean, the fact of the matter is, it's just not, I mean, where they are, they're kind of, I think they're going to be there until we move.
but O then
And I don't
too.
think they're bursting out at the seams today. They may be getting close to capacity.
O would be
They're
another
getting
one
tight,
too,
but that's-
because they do that up in court services now, you know.
Well, yeah, I'm okay with those staying where it is, I mean, but I wouldn't mind seeing N, S, I think N, S, and T are kind of poison pills. And then I wouldn't, and then if we move them down to the final option, then the last thing I would say, I'm okay with not removing anything, but I just would like a bold statement saying, Wright County recognizes that some of these options may not be practical, and basically, we ask for the architect to point out those that are clearly not practical.
Maybe that's,
You know what I mean, something like that.
maybe instead of moving these to N, S, and T, maybe that's the statement we could just put in there.
Yeah,
Just a blanket statement?
Mr.
a blanket.
Mr. Chair, I would
I
agree
would-
with Commissioner Delight, leave them as they are, but make that statement that if these are clearly not practical.
I guess I'd like us to make that statement at the end of option 2 and 3, not necessarily at the end of
I
option
would-
1, because I think those things are more,
I don't think you should put them in the options. I think you should put them as part of as the whole thing.
okay, then I think it, so then at the end of the day, what we'd get back potentially is a report that might include saying, you could stay here for 4 years, these are the things you could change, it would cost you $3.5 million. We can't change these 8 items, though.
That's what.
Those 8 items are just plain not practical.
I think that
You
was
could
the
change here, you could stay here for 10 years, it's gonna cost you $6 million, but these 7 items these 7 just plain ain't practical. As long as we have it set up in that, and we clearly indicated in here,
And I would think that should be part of the scope of of the proposal, is something to that effect.
Right.
Mr. Chair,
I
that was where
agree.
we were going on this, is what is feasible and practical, given the space we have here, versus what is not. And we're trying to get to that point, is how much is it going to cost to buy us how much time? And if it costs, like, say, $18 million, then we know, okay, that's not practical or feasible over here. But if we can get something for $1 million or $2 million and buy ourselves 6, 8 years or 10 years or whatever the case may be, then you say, okay, is that practical, is that feasible? And the answer would probably be yes.
Yeah, well, I know $1 or $2 million isn't going to cut
Well,
it.
know,
I can
but
guarantee you
just
that
use
right
that as a
away.
number.
Yeah, and I think there's some things I think an architect can look at and just basically say,
Right.
that's not worth it. I don't want to spend 9 hours of my time, or you don't want me to spend 9 hours of my time at $200 an hour penciling out all this stuff when it's going to be $3.7 million for a secured parking garage. Or something, or something like that,
Yeah,
It would
no,
just-
and again, that's, I really think the courts, the judges don't want to force us to have to build a new one, but there are things that they do need, and I think they realize that. And I think they'll understand when an architect says, we understand what you want, but in this facility, it's not feasible to do.
And
Mr.
since-
Chairman, if I may, to address both the concerns that you've just raised, perhaps it would be beneficial to just add language that indicates in the earlier in the RFP, before we get to the lists of what we would like to get information about, perhaps we could just list that it's the county's desire to utilize this facility, the current facility, as long as possible. And then secondly, that
I think we could even go with as long as possible, up to 10 years or something like that, because
Sure.
I think, I think we can realize that there's an end time here.
Mr. Chair, I just have an idea, and maybe it might work, is to, when we have the architect come in, let them know that we're to come in and do this, talk with everybody, do the walk around, and then we could sit down and have this conversation with the architect or who's ever doing the RFP, and they could look at it and say, there's no way that's gonna be just start to sort some things out before they do 9 hours at $200.
But I'd just like to see a statement in here that lets them know right off the bat, because they might be looking at this thing thinking some of the same things, like these guys are off their wall, some of these things, there's no way it's gonna work.
I'm
I'll let
with
you
you
put in
on
here
that.
right now, if there's some things that we realize
I'm with you
aren't
on
gonna be
that,
practical and that.
but rather than just send them on their way.
No, I agree, we gotta talk and tell them that too.
To have a preliminary meeting before they go on and give us.
Mr. Chair, we do have that built in here. It's called a pre-bid meeting.
Okay.
And that's where you can address some of these issues that you stated out, because they release RFQ, RFP, and then the pre-bid meeting is where you discuss some of these items and you put this is what's practical and not. That's where you address those items prior to them wasting any time or spending any time doing anything. And they'll come out with questions, plenty of questions at that pre-bid meeting.
I assume there'll be an interview process expected for the top 2 or 3 candidates as well, I'm guessing. And the full board, I suspect, will be in on that whole process. Well, we'll decide that later, but I would expect they would be.
But the pre-bid meeting is where you can come up with some of these little drill-down items that you're looking at, or details that you're getting into now is more of a pre-bid meeting, to know what the ground rules are and what we're trying to achieve, because they're going to be asking the same questions that we're asking, but from their side of the perspective.
Is it okay if we lay this over for just 1 week and change those options around and get language in there on, that items can be removed if not practical, and basically the architect's job to.
Can we
advise
number
us
them
if there's
instead
no-
of the letters too?
What's that?
Can we number them instead of the letters?
Oh, go back to the old numbering like we had?
What difference does it make?
Yeah,
Yeah.
what difference does it make?
Oh, I
You
see.
can just look at it and see there's 10 there and there's 8 over here.
Yeah, they were numbered before, like here.
Like, if you just said G, I have to go A, B, C. I don't know G is the whatever letter.
I think
Mr. Chairman, if I may.
Yes, you may.
The courts wants to encourage you to proceed with all due haste. These benches that, the bench modifications that we need those literally months ago. So we would ask that you proceed as quickly as possible. I'm not hearing a lot of dissent for the changes that you wish to make here. So if possible, if we could get this out this week that would be so useful to the bench in terms of getting going with those bench modifications in particular.
And Mr. Chair,
Just a request.
Okay, I understand.
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Potter.
by laying this over, then you're gonna take this whole schedule and you're gonna move it up at least more than a week. It'll be the first part, we tried to sequence this to give enough time to get adequate response. The more we delay it, if it comes back next week and you want to delay it again, the idea is to move forward. We still have the ultimate authority to reject anything that comes before us if we see something that doesn't look right. The idea is to have this moving forward and try to keep construction cycles as you get closer to the spring, people start getting busier. We want to try to capture this before it starts getting too busy and all of a sudden we're into
Well, I guess
May
the
before we
question
get
is,
quote evaluations or
does
June.
Lee feel comfortable with what we talked about to put it together and, and
Changing the options.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I think I have a good sense of the comments that were raised, and I think it might be easiest, I guess, if the board would be okay, I'll just maybe make those revisions and forward that along, and, I think I have a good sense of the comments that were made and some of the revisions to the order and some of the items.
Do you want to forward it out to the full board, or if you guys are okay with him running it by me, since I think I've kind of brought him up, and I'm fine with where we finished here.
that way we don't have to wait another week and we can
Mr.
get
Chair,
it.
I'm fine as long as you get that, and I'm trying to make this move forward, like Judge McPherson was saying, let's get this moving forward. And coordinator's got what the questions are, and run it by the chair would be fine with me.
And Mr. Chair, it's not my intent to slow down the process. Charlie kind of started out right away saying it kind of looks like we kind of changed course a little bit, and I felt that too from it, and I think maybe some changes here kind of shift us back a little bit more towards course. And
Well, I think the one statement should solve a lot of the issues, stating that our goal is to stay for 10 years, but we realize some of these may not be feasible, and we are hoping the architect is going to be able to tell us yes and no. I mean, that's their job, and that's why we're hiring somebody. Who knows?
and I think, from my position, again, just so we get to the end, I think if again, and I don't want to hash things over again, but it kind of suggests now if we're here more than 4 years, or delay building for 8 to 10 years, okay. Delay building for 8 to 10. So I'm not sure if you're here, I don't know what this means right now. If maybe someone can tell me. If we're here 6 years right now, does that mean that, if we're here 6 years, does that mean we have to have the greatest category of things done, or we only have to have them done if we're here 8 years? Does that make sense?
There's a little
Yes,
gap
Mr.
there.
Chairman.
Yeah.
I'm trying to picture in my mind here.
Perhaps.
If we're here 6 years, does that mean we need to have all the things done primarily that say need to be done within 3 to 4 years? Or does that mean we have to have the 8 to 10 year done because it's been longer than 4 years? What does that mean? I don't understand that.
Mr. Chairman, the delay that was talked about is that we delay starting the project for 3 to 4 years. So I think the 6-year category would encompass what's in the current draft, options 1 and 2.
Okay.
Whereas if you're going to delay starting any building for 8 to 10 years, then what we would be seeking is options 1, 2, and 3 in the current draft.
Okay. So, okay, very well. Thanks for that clarification.
Do we need a motion?
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to approve the draft remodeling feasibility and go forward with the comments that were made with Coordinator Kelly, conferring with the chair to move forward with this proposal as the schedule sits here.
I will second that.
Okay, motion by Commissioner Potter, second by Commissioner Houston. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimous. Thanks for
you.
coming.
Thank you for your time today.
Thanks for your time. And I think that concludes our agenda for the day. We do have a negotiation committee of the whole at 11 a.m. But there being no further business in this meeting, we are adjourned at 10:16 a.m.